Today I spoke with Nathan. We talked about his journey with drug addiction and where it all started. This is a story about how perhaps issues growing up and wanting to escape the thoughts in your mind can lead you down a path of addiction. And he tells a really powerful story of 8 years of doing opioids and coming off of that and where he is now, which is he's out there saving lives. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Nathan.
Hello.
How are
Okay,
you?
awesome. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. How's it
Thanks for
going?
having
Where
me.
are you right now?
I'm at home right now.
Nice. So, Southern California, were you born and raised there?
No, I was born and raised in Tennessee.
Okay, cool. Nice. So I guess it'd be great to start off with tell us a little bit about yourself, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm 29 years old. I was born and raised in a really small town in Tennessee. There's probably, I think at that point there was around 1,500 people that lived there, so it's like really small. Everybody knows everybody. Well, there were 70 students in my graduating class, I think. Um, I have one older brother. I was raised by a single parent. My dad was a single father. Um, and my he had to work two jobs and whatnot to raise us. My mom was kind of out of the picture there at a very early age, so he had to do a lot of things by himself. So I graduated high school, and then after that, life went downhill really quick. I got accepted into college, and at that time, I mean, I was partying pretty heavily, but I didn't really have what you would call a substance use disorder. It was more like misuse per se, and there's a difference. And so I got accepted into school, but I didn't go, and because I knew I was gonna flunk out, and so I stayed home and I sold drugs, and then I think that following October, I ended up trying opiates for the first time, and I got addicted and went on an 8 year eight it was went on for 8 years of just using and trying to get sober, and then using and just in and out, like fighting a lot of demons, whatever you want to call it. And I got sober in 2018 in October. um, I've been sober since. I do a lot of nonprofit work in the community, you know, with people that are houseless, or that are affected by the opioid epidemic.
So going back a little bit, taking it back, I think I read online that you had mentioned in your early childhood that your mother had kidnapped you. Do you think that
Yeah.
or perhaps the your parents splitting up was anything that led to the issues you experienced with addiction?
I think, yeah, I think it led to me feeling alone and isolated for sure, and that's like a big part of addiction is isolation. I didn't trust nobody, and my dad was never around, so I never felt good enough for my parents, and I was too young to realize that my dad was doing the best that he could with what he had. Like, that's what I know now, you
Yeah.
know. And he, my dad drank a lot back then. He drank a lot, and he doesn't anymore, but he did back then. And now I see as he was just coping and dealing with it the best that he could. But as a 5 and a 6 year old, like, I didn't know that. There was no way to
Yeah.
know that. I had no way to uh I didn't even know how to identify these feelings I was feeling, nonetheless cope with them. You know what I mean? How do
Mm,
you, how do you tell a 6 year old that? How do you do that? How do you provide like accurate therapy to a 6 year old? You
yeah.
know, how do you do that? Because they try to
And
put me in therapy. They try to put me in therapy, but I wouldn't talk. I didn't even understand like what was going on around me and how it was affecting me. Nonetheless, how to process it.
yeah. And that's a really interesting point of like you were given the help, but it still didn't help you. What
Yeah.
was life like for you in your childhood?
It was chaotic, honestly, I mean, I can definitely remember, like, my parents fighting and stuff like that. I can definitely remember, my mom being out of the picture. I always worried about her. I always it was like the situation with my mom was like, it was horrible for me to be around her, and it was horrible for me to be away from her. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because when I wasn't around her, I never knew if I was gonna see her again. And then if I wasn't around her, I was like, "Is this the last time I'm gonna see you again?" You know what I mean? Because
Why did you think that you wouldn't see her again?
well, because she just took off. I mean, she pretty much abandoned us. You know what I mean? I woke up one morning and she was gone, and I was so smart. Like I knew that like something was wrong as like a 5-year old. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like something internally told me like something was wrong,
Yeah.
and I was right.
And what was your experience with being kidnapped?
So she came and got us, right? So she had like visitation, and we had family in from Ohio, and they were like at my dad's place, and they were like, "You want to go with your mom? Do you want to stay here?" And I was like, "So we went with my mom." And so we had visitation with her, and she just never took us back. We were in Kentucky, and so where I lived at in Tennessee and Kentucky is like the border is like probably 3 minutes from my house back then, so you can easily be in another state. And she took us to Kentucky. We were in the middle of like nowhere. I think this town is like probably 500 people. Like it's an old coal mining town in the middle of nowhere. Um, and we stayed in like this holler, just way back in the mountains, and we stayed there and stuff like that. And she just like convinced us that what she was doing was the right thing to do. So she pretty much brainwashed us. It's pretty much what happened. And that's like
What does holler mean? You said,
holler means like the valley, like between like two mountains.
oh
And so you're
wow.
between them, yeah. That's like that's slang. That's like Eastern Appalachian slang.
All right. I was
Yeah.
like, they were staying in the holler. I was like, was this a
With
hostel?
I'm sorry. Uh
Wow. Okay. So you eventually did make your way back to your dad, but you don't think that you were better off?
I mean, I was so at that point, she said I can't remember exactly what she said, but she told us that, like my dad was gonna either do something to us, like carry us off in like bags or carry her off in a bag. I don't even know, but something along those lines is like I can remember like a body in a bag, like
Yeah.
say the least. And she told us that, and so she convinced us what she was doing was right. We ended up going to uh DCS, Department of Children's Services, and she ended up getting arrested. And then we go back with my dad, and that time I'm like, well, what's really going on? I was too young to understand that, like what she had just done to me
Yeah.
and my brother.
Wow. What's the age difference with your brother?
He's 5 years older than me.
He's 5 years older. Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. So when do you think you lost control with substance abuse? I think you said it started with alcohol in high school.
yeah. I mean, if we look back, like if it's for like if we look back at it, like I started self harming as a way to like get outside of myself. So that's like the start of it. Like, and that
Mm,
started very young. I don't even think I'd made it to 10 years old, and I was self harming.
wow.
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't like the way I felt, and all these things and all these feelings and stuff like that, and all these thoughts that I was having. I was very just confused. I didn't know what was going on. And I was just very angry. I hated the world, you know what I mean? Very angry child. And yeah, I started self-harming, and then maybe anything that got me outside of myself when I was younger, like I would I would play video games like all day, or I would go skate all day. Like there was always like anything I put time into, it was either one extremity or the next. There was no like
Mm.
in between, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And what were the thoughts you didn't want to confront and the feelings?
I just never felt good enough. I never felt worthy. I didn't like Yeah, as a child, I would have thoughts of what is the point of this experience? You know what I mean? Like, why am I here? Like, this is like, as I was so like what hurt from what I had been through. Like, why was I born to go through this much pain this early on? I was like, what is the point of this shit? This is what I thought. Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah.
That is really dark for like someone of that age to experience that. It's so young. My
Mhm.
goodness. So you turned to drugs and alcohol. And I think you and I spoke before, and you said you can remember a moment where you felt you took, was it
Opioid.
for the first time and you felt like your problems had lifted? Can you share that moment?
Yeah, so I looked up that definition and I cannot find it. It's in my paperwork somewhere when I was taking this class, and I cannot find
That's all
the
right.
definitive term for it. And it's gonna drive me crazy. But I had experimented before, and like I partied hard back then. Like I would drink every day. I would smoke weed every day, and I believe I'd even done benzos like here and there, but like it was never like really an issue. It was more just like misusing. There's a difference between like misusing substances and like substance use disorder. There's a completely different
Would you
difference
share
to it.
what the difference is?
Yeah, so to my understanding, so substance misuse would be like, okay, oh, like I get a prescription, okay, and I decide to take four of those pills instead of three, or I'm someone like say I have like pain, and someone gives me their pain medicine prescription and I take it. That's substance misuse. Substance use disorder. There's like 10. If you look at the DSM-5, which is like how they diagnose like disorders and stuff like that, they use it to like it kind of like paves a pathway for them to give a diagnosis.
Okay.
Um, you have to meet like there's like 10 questions on it, and I think and they kind of like diagnose the disorder, either mild, moderate, or severe, along these kind of like questions and stuff like that on there, and like how it pertains to my life. Um, so so back then, I was just I would say I was just misusing. Like I'm not an addiction professional, but this is just my experience and what I know, and like from some things I've studied, and my lived experience. But back then, I was just misusing. You know what I mean? Like it had never caused any problems in my life whatsoever, for the most part.
Mm.
Um, and and so before I did the opioid, I was just selling drugs, trying to make money. Like that was my high per se, was the money and all that
Mm.
came with it. And at night I smoked like half a joint before I went to bed. I couldn't even finish it, and that's all I would do. And so I go to this guy's place. I'm there to cop a lot of drugs. He tells me I'm in a bad mood and I need to liven up, and he puts out an M Block 30, which is a roxycodone 30 milligram opioid pill. I snort like half of it or half of a half. Um, and it was the best feeling I'd ever felt in my life. I'd never been so euphoric. And that euphoric comfort from that drug, I like immediately thought I need to feel like this for the rest of my life. That was my first thought.
Yeah. Tell us more about like how it felt in that moment.
Oh, it felt like it felt like a like it felt like a weighted, heated blanket was wrapped around me, and I didn't care anymore. My anxiety was gone. My fears were gone. I just didn't care. Like I could breathe again. Like all my worries were just washed away, and it's everything I'd always wanted to happen. You know?
Yeah. And that's one intention I really want to get out of this episode is I want people to understand that addiction, like have more empathy towards people who become addicted to drugs. Like the seed of it is like what you just said, wanting your anxieties to go away. A lot of people can relate to that. So tell us more about what happened after that. So you said 8 years of this. What was it like
Yeah.
in your life as an addict?
Well, I'll put okay. I want to explain how good I felt. So I felt so good that I had enough drugs in the toolbox of my truck to send me away to prison for a very, very long time.
Wow.
And I seen a tree dangling down across the road, and I seen a cop there shooting radar, probably looking for drunk drivers. And I pulled in there and told him about this tree that someone could hit. That's how good I felt, all the while being extremely intoxicated, but somewhat coherent. Obviously coherent. He didn't take me to jail, and then went about my business. I went and like sold some drugs to somebody that night at the bank or something, and proceeded
Wow.
home. Yeah.
But that's also the definition of being like reckless behavior, right? Like there's
Oh,
a part of you
off the
who's
rip,
like pushing the boundaries
yeah, off
far.
the rip. Yeah, I had enough drugs. He would have like pulled me out, searched my car, like I would went to off the rip went to prison, like for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. That's a new
But I
kind of
didn't
high as
care.
well you're chasing as well. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
recklessness.
I was
Yeah.
fearless. I did not care. Like did not. I didn't have a
Wow.
care in me.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that I didn't like about myself, because I felt like I just my nature is like my personality is that I care too much, and when I did drugs, I did not care, and I loved
Mm,
it. It shut that off.
yeah. How did you fund your drug addiction? I read that you said you spent 400 to $500 a
I was
day.
selling drugs,
Yeah.
stealing, um, things like that.
Wow.
Um,
Have you ever done any time at all or been?
no, I never got caught. I never got caught. Like right before I went to treatment the first time, the cops were following me around a little bit, but I never got caught. They're eventually gonna get me. Like it was just a matter of time, but like they never built a case against me.
Yeah. And what did your family at this point, your dad, were you still living at home with him?
The first time I went to treatment,
No,
oh,
when you started doing drugs
oh yeah,
for the 8 years.
I was living with my aunt. Yeah, I had upset my parents. I was living at my parents, or I was living at my aunt's in high school, and then like the end of senior year, close to it, they like pulled me back to their house because I had like upset them. I was reckless, and then
Okay.
I moved out the day I turned 18, and
Okay.
I moved in with my aunt, and yeah, I was just living there and just selling drugs and working.
And do you think she knew?
Oh yeah, at some point, yeah, she caught on eventually. Yeah, it was obvious what I was doing. She caught on. I would always just deny it. That's what we do, just lie,
Yeah.
lie, lie, lie.
Yeah. So for you, what was it like to have did you have any loved ones who were trying to pull you out? Was your aunt there for you trying to stop you, or your dad or your brother?
They would. I never really seen my dad that much back then. I mean, I was trying to avoid him. I mean, for many good reasons. I mean, so it's my dad, and my dad's also a cop, and my brother's a cop. So I was
Oh
trying
my
to stay
god.
away
Oh,
from them.
wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was trying to stay away from them. Yeah.
And how did that
But
go?
I mean, I did good. I mean, that for a while, and I was pretty good at it. And yeah, she definitely knew though. I think one time I even told her
Yeah.
that I was like using drugs and abusing them. It was like, it is what it is,
Yeah.
you
S
know. And
So did she ever
yeah, I
kick you
was
out?
no, no,
No.
no,
Wow.
no.
So you have never experienced, homelessness?
I've slept in my truck a few nights. Yeah, I've slept
Okay.
in my truck a few nights.
Yeah. So, how did this impact all of like your friendships, relationships? You said when you were high, like you didn't care at all. How that
Oh,
must have impacted a lot.
oh god. Yeah. Oh, oh, I gave jobs away, I was a complete asshole. You couldn't talk to me. I didn't care about myself, so I really didn't care about anybody else. Like, yeah.
Wow. What was like a turning point for you? I read that you had 2 or 3 overdoses.
Yeah, I had two overdoses, and that really wasn't the thing that did it for me. Though, is the crazy thing about it. It never it never stopped me.
Yeah.
I had it took I mean, it was so crazy. I'd come out to California, and I'd put together like 4 months of sobriety, and then I ended up like smoking weed. I didn't really do weed. I just did like marijuana, like subli I can't even say the word, but it's just like under the tongue or whatever. You just like drop it under your tongue. And I
Okay.
did that, and I absolutely lost my mind. And I swear
Mhm.
to God, and like I had like a mental break. I was having like 4 anxiety attacks a day. It was so bad. I couldn't even go to work. And I was watching a movie, and this lady in the movie had agoraphobia. She couldn't leave her house. She like, whatever. And I was like, holy shit, that's gonna be me if I don't get sober. So I thought, I'm not gonna die. I maybe go to prison or jail. Um, but the biggest fear, I was like, what if I don't die or anything happens, and I'm sober, but I can never leave my house again for the rest of my life because of my anxiety being so bad. I was like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. And I knew I couldn't use successfully. I knew I really sucked at using drugs successfully, obviously. I'm like, I can't even do this. And I was doing such a low dose. I was like, I just really suck. And, and so I got sober because of that. I just lost my anxiety and like the mental break, and I wanted to kill
Wow.
myself. I wanted to run
You
out in front of
did.
the Amtrak in Carlsbad Village. Like that was my plan.
What was your
Um,
plan?
my plan was to run out in front of the Amtrak, which is a train.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear that. Do you feel like you have those thoughts still?
No, no, I haven't had a suicidal thought since like probably since then, really.
Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting
or an
because
ideation.
you wanted to do the drugs because it stopped your anxiety and then it made it worse.
Yeah, essentially the same thing that oppressed me was the same thing that liberated me.
Ooh, wow. I wanted to quote you. You said, I was a nuisance to society and loving me was a liability. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah. Oh,
wow.
yeah. Yeah. That's it. Really was. Yeah. I ruined. I gave away every job I had. I was a complete asshole. Um, I couldn't. You couldn't. People didn't want to be around me. And if you did, I pushed you away. Loving me was hard because I mean, you didn't know if I was gonna die or go to jail. I was just reckless. Like I didn't care. My behaviors, everything about me was just reckless.
Yeah.
Um, so it was the definition. I mean, there's so much more that went on, so much more.
Yeah. So you did sobriety, not sobriety, what's it called? You went to rehab 3 times? Is that what you
Yeah,
call it?
I did two stints of rehab. Yeah.
Okay. And then your anxiety, like you mentioned, it was the trigger for really wanting to pull yourself out of that addiction. How long have you been clean now?
Through a little over 3 years. Yeah.
Wow, congratulations. Because
Thank
during
you.
COVID, that must have felt quite hard to stay sober.
Oh, it was it was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you think a lot of people with addiction issues suffered really hard during COVID?
absolutely. I know it for a fact. There's
Yeah.
without a doubt. I've seen people that had 20 years, like
Wow.
20 years without putting a substance in their body, go back out.
Mm, oh
So
my
that
God.
tells you like how
Yeah.
real it is.
So what was getting clean like? Like everyone says that, throws that phrase around, but like how long does it take to get clean? And what was the experience like?
The first time I kicked opioids was at my dad's house, and my dad like took my money, my keys, my phone, and he just made me kick it home. And he drove me to work, and then he would pick me up, and I was so dope sick that I was like, I don't want to have to. If I get high, I'm just prolonging this. You know what I mean? And I was just so weak, and I just didn't care. So I did it. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And then it took
What does it
about
feel
2 weeks.
like?
It feels like the flu times 20. Yeah, you can't hold anything down. You have diarrhea. Your whole body hurts, and it's mental torture. It's like because you know how to fix it, right? It's like if I could just get this one substance, I could fix this, and I
Mm,
wouldn't have to feel this way. And you just can't do it. You just like nothing. Like you'll treat the symptoms with ibuprofen, Imodium, all this other stuff, and it just won't do it. And you're just like, but in your head, if I could just get this substance, I'd feel fine. And and that's like the only thought you have in your head, the
yeah.
only thought you have. And that's what being, I mean, it's just being dope sick. And it's like a parrot. It's like your brain doesn't think about anything else, like anything. Like someone could be dying, and I'd be like, I wouldn't think about it. I would just like it's the
Wow.
craziest thing I've ever experienced.
Because it's all consuming. And did that last for
So
days, for weeks?
it would last I mean, it was all day, every day for like 2 weeks. That's
2 weeks.
when I felt normal again or normal again. You know what I mean? I didn't feel sick. I didn't feel like I
Yeah.
needed something.
How
And
how many times have
and I
you
mean
gone
like
through that?
oh God. Um, I don't know, like 9 times, 10 times.
9, 10 times, because that's how many times you've tried to kick it. And
Oh, I've tried
then
to kick it so many times. I mean, yeah, so many times.
okay,
And
so 3 years ago was the last time. Well done. That's
thank you.
amazing. So for you now, what's sobriety looking like?
Now it's I work and I go to school. Um I do a lot of nonprofit work.
Tell us about
And
that.
so the nonprofit work that I do is I distribute Narcan and fentanyl test strips and other um, forms of harm reduction in my community. And I try to educate people on Narcan and try to like break the stigma around addiction and Narcan and and raise awareness of the opioid epidemic.
Yeah. And just for others listening out there, Narcan, can you explain what that is, Nathan?
Yeah, so Narcan is an opioid antagonist. It's been around since I want to say the 70s. It's been around since in the
Okay.
70s, early 70s, I think. And so it's an opioid antagonist. You cannot get high on it. It goes into the body and it kicks the opioids off the receptors and allows someone to experience an opioid overdose to breathe again for a short amount of time. You can't get high on it. And the only bad reactions to it that I know of is just someone, they when they come to, a lot of times they experience dope sickness.
Okay.
And it's the only thing it can be used for. So I could like take Narcan, shove it up my nose, and give myself a dose. It wouldn't do anything to me.
Okay. So what exactly is an overdose? Because it sounds like it's something where you can't stop, where you can't breathe.
Yeah, so it's when like too many. It's when the opioid receptors, like too many opioids bind to the receptors, and it slows down your breathing, and so you go into respiratory failure. And so 3 to 5 minutes without oxygen, you can go brain dead. And so a
Wow.
lot of a lot of times people can still be revived with Narcan, but they've been without oxygen for so long that they're brain dead, like they're a vegetable.
Wow. So the benefit is of would the person who's, going to experience that, would they have it on them and people would hope to pat them down and find it, or
That
how does it work?
that or my hope is that everybody has Narcan. Everybody that's my hope, and the nonprofit that I'm with is that everybody that's willing, able, and capable will carry Narcan. Eventually, the end goal is to just be over the counter. You just go and get it, or we decriminalize drugs because the war on drugs has failed. You know what I mean? It's like obviously never worked. It's not working now. It's just so hopefully that's what will happen.
Yeah. Do you think the opioid epidemic is it getting
Yeah.
worse?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, statistically, absolutely. People are dying. We've seen a 200% increase in deaths in this county alone.
Wow.
We've saved over 200 lives in a month and a half.
And by we, you're not for
The
profit.
nonprofit, yeah.
Wow, that's
Hmm.
amazing work. And that's because you've been getting out in the community and distributing and teaching people how to use this on
Hmm.
others.
Yeah, it can get available. Some people know how to use it. They just can't. Like the people on this, like a lot of how people experiencing homelessness or that are houseless, they know they just from being in that situation, that environment, they know how to use it. They just have no way to get it because if you go to the pharmacy, it's so expensive, so expensive. So it's just getting that into their hands because I believe that people that are either the people that are experiencing homelessness or that are practicing substance use disorder um, are the first responders to the opioid epidemic.
Yeah. Wow. So you must be super proud of yourself that you can literally say you've saved lives.
Oh
So
yeah, I'm stoked.
I remember when you said beforehand, I said, "Is there anything you want me to ask?" And you said, "If I have any regrets." So let's hear it.
Oh yeah. No, I don't. You know, there's been times like in my addiction, like I wish I never heard my aunt tell me that she didn't know who I was anymore because that really hurt. But like all in all, like I wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't have say maybe I wouldn't be in California. Maybe these people would have died. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of these things probably wouldn't have happened. Like I wouldn't get to be like a little beacon of hope that I am now for change. You know what I mean? And I'm the type of person like I don't care. Like if people want to use drugs, let them use drugs. Like I don't care. Like if you're fine with it, use them. You know what I mean? I don't. I'm not one of those people that go preach sobriety and recovery. Like, oh, you got to get sober. Like I don't care. If you want to use drugs, use drugs. That's on you. That's your right. But I'm just trying to be there for when they're ready. If they feel like they're done, like they're ready, this is not working, they need to find a new way to like experience and live life. That's what I try to do. Um, but yeah, no, I wouldn't change any of it. I wouldn't know.
Okay. Do you have any advice for how people can support those who are struggling with addiction?
I would say a lot of patience, a lot of love, a lot of tolerance. I would also not enable them. Would not enable them. Honestly, I think my family should have kicked me out. You know, I think they should kick me out. I hate to say it, but they definitely enabled me, and I get it. Like I get it. Like back then, I would tell you like, thank you. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
they definitely should not have let me live there. You know, I was a danger to them, or I could have caused them a lot of problems. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
definitely should have kicked me out to the street. Like,
Have you and your family made amends?
oh yeah, no, I flew back home and made amends with them. Yeah, absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on. And is there any final words you want to say?
Um, just thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it. Let me
Cool.
tell a little bit of my story.
No worries. All right. Have a good one.
All right, you
Bye.
too. Thank you.